First thing, in the larger structure of life, the more you can bring all ages together, the more vitality and insight there is. Because at any moment in time, each person is on the circle that is the birth-death cycle. And they're moving towards the next cycle. And the best insight of either what not to do or what to do comes from the people that are ahead of you in the cycle. The best insight and memory of what went on in the past and, for example, what it's like to be an infant or a child comes from being around an infant and a child. There's also a natural pairing between the old and the young. The very old and the very young tend to have an innocence, and the young are not fully in the world, and neither are the very old. Both are partly transcending the ego identity. So it's ideal to bring all the ages together. Now, we've separated the ages in the American cult by, first of all, sending all the children to school, and then sending the grown-ups to work in separate locations, number one. We send the sick to the hospital, so you don't get to deal with that. We send the elderly to an old people's home to separate that. And in so doing that, many of our elderly die alone, and our young do not have the opportunity to imagine and be present to the fact that every human being dies. So bringing work to the community, making education a more useful and interactive and mentor-type experience naturally reconnects all of the ages, and the opportunity to die with people that you know well is a dignity that most cults in human history have given their elderly, but which we, to a large extent, have not. So children are part of that larger tapestry. Now, within the framework of children specifically, I think one of the most important things is to trust in the evolutionary tendencies of life. That as part of evolution, we have a series of cycles, but that at any given moment, life is always seeking to move back to center, back to grace, by counterbalancing what's going on. And so the predispositions of the newly born and children are most likely to be medicinal for the blind spots and absurdities of the current cult. And the more we push the cult one way, the more we'll tend to have people rebelling to come back into center. This is one of the reasons why in an intelligent cult, understanding the unique strengths and gifts, these are the biases that are built into the program of life. You know, if you get, a mathematical genius or a musician or whatever it is, what life is saying is that this is the response to the current imbalances. Things have gotten a little bit too serious around here, and the cult is a bit too full of itself. So let's bring in some clowning and some music and some dancing, which will, of course, be a great disappointment to the tradition of dogmatizing every cult trait and trying to push it to the nth degree of asymmetry. So perhaps the most important thing, along with the ushering of a new child, a new infant into the community, is the active interest in the community to collaborate, to discern the traits of that child, the things that that child can do with excellence, to bring that into awareness. And when you have 50 to 70 grown-ups, hopefully adults, all converging to try and talk about the dominant characteristics of that child, and rather than pathologizing them, to look for the medicine for the community that lies within the traits of that child. Well, this is a terrific experience for the child, rather than being shamed and humiliated for diverging medicinally from the herd, to being honored and welcomed as the blessing and the medicine for the assumption that any cult, any group is going to get off balance and have blind spots. It's tremendously enlivening and informing for all concerned. The wiser and more competent older people inspire and challenge and give direction. The innocence, the vitality of the young revitalize the community. And quality time in this kind of educational model, for mentoring and art and talking, becomes incredibly useful. And depending on the competencies of each grown-up and their temperament and the child, as a child experiences different things, they're going to want to talk with different members of the community, some with their same gender, some with the opposite gender, to kind of explore. Just thinking about it makes me incredibly happy, which, of course, is a good sign for a 10X community.